Orb on the movements of the earth. Episode 18, to liberate information.
教会のお偉いさんでしょ。こんなことしていいんですか?
Draka is not afraid. She has the audacity to move the earth like only a 12-year-old can do. As long as you paid us money, I mean, worship God.
あなたたちの典型的な思考だ。
What do you mean, you people?
自分たちは理性的で勝っている。他者は未開で劣っている。
Putting people in little boxes, neat little boxes for your own pleasure and benefit.
何世代も前から回収してるのに、未だに差別される。その態度って聖書の教えに反するんじゃないですか?
It's interesting. I feel like I see these games sometimes, you know? It's tough to tease out motivations at first glance, but I think over time, with enough repeated attempts, you can sort of see what the actual underlying ethos is or goal is. There are a lot of good causes out there, and some of those actually are from people who mean really well and they really believe in the causes and they're fighting for the causes. Other people use the causes as a way to get something, let's say, lesser, like power or money or attention or whatever. And I think one of those telltale signs that it's the latter, not the former, is that it's a moving target and it's impossible to hit, right? So like there will be a dictum from this movement so that whatever you try to do to amend the problem, it is framed as an extension of the problem. Another is refusal to accept any sort of actual progress towards the goal. Because if you really were about the goal itself and you really thought that was for the best and that was the only thing you wanted, well then you would be delighted by movement towards the goal. However, if you were using the cause for your own selfish aims, you would sort of want the problem to always exist because that is currently the leverage you have on the world and you don't want to give that up so easily. In a very general sense, I feel like I experience this a lot online where like there will often be comments that take the most benign things and turn them into just major statements about humanity. You know, you get the sense after a while that that's not really about a good cause. That's about being able to strike a hit and get some points, you know. I mean, maybe it's more obvious not even at the societal level, but on the interpersonal level, right? Like sometimes there are relationships where no matter what you do, your partner finds fault with it. You will listen and internalize what they're saying is a problem and you'll attempt to correct it and you'll go to the other direction. But then that itself will be a problem and it will be construed in the way that is most convenient for that person to continue the dynamic of the relationship, which is their actual goal, not the stated issue. But I don't understand how this applies to Bishop Anthony. He's always been so great.
そんなことしてるから教会の分裂が進む。
Oh, that struck a nerve. Sweat intensifies. Draka's right, though. It runs its course.
なぜ布なんだ? 普通、金目のものを優先するだろう。
Metaphor incoming.
稼ぐのに金は大して重要じゃない。金だけあっても減るだけ。
Now we're talking Anthony's language.
だから金そのものを探すのは得策じゃない。
This is sort of brilliant, I
金
think.
が欲しかったら重要なのは。
Wow, this is amazing. This is so cool. Accidentally, I feel like this is striking into something that is so cool and is an idea that I personally love. Par for the course with Orb. There's a bunch of things at once. I mean, I've become sort of fascinated with the idea since Assassination Classroom of Goodhart's law as it applies to more general things outside of science. And that's the idea that when a measure becomes the goal, it ceases to become a good measure. I think it also applies to things like happiness, for example, right? Like if you make happiness the goal, things start to get a little bit weird because happiness maybe isn't so actionable. Happiness is a byproduct of something else and a sign that things are going right in a sort of a deeper, more fundamental way. So you pursue those things, and if you do it right and you have a modicum of luck, the resulting byproduct will also be happiness, right? And then you could make a good argument for that for money. Chasing money is sort of weird, right? Like money is something that we need, but that's maybe looking at it one step downstream, where what is money actually? I think the way it came about initially was that we were all exchanging value, but in a very illiquid way. Resources are always finite, things are always in decay. So if you want something or want to ask for something, you probably should be producing or providing at the same or greater rate than you're asking or consuming. And so that is sort of just a natural way that things evolve. You want stuff, you should make stuff. And then money just came about as a way of making that process a little bit more liquid because I'm probably producing something very specific because of comparative advantage. I get more from focusing on one thing and I want Y product, but maybe the producer of Y product doesn't need what I make. So we just have money as sort of a symbol of the value and we can make that transaction a little bit more liquid. I can just pay for good Y with money now and the producer of good Y can, buy whatever they want with this liquid instrument. Now, I think we've forgotten that a little bit, which may seem like a minor distinction, but I think it actually may be important in terms of I think it's useful to think about what values are attached to it. What are the actual things being served by the good or the transaction or whatever. Now, that's tricky because it's not necessarily something that anybody can dictate, right? That's kind of in the eye of the beholder to a large extent. It's not at all to pass judgment on people for their consumption habits, just to have that concept at all that there's some relationship there. Because back to the Goodhart Hart's law thing. Well, what does it really mean if you have a lot of money or get money? And if money is a thing you actually want? Like happiness, maybe you try to look at the level of the root rather than at the level of the symptom. And in this, I think Draka maybe is connecting this to something even deeper of like, well, what is value even? And in there is this idea of very much of synthesis of like you using your gifts, take existing materials and combine them and create something more than the materials. So you have performed something additive to the world or to humanity or to one person or whatever. And that is really cool because maybe that also mirrors the process of life and the universe where, yeah, we're all just raw materials, but also we're more than raw materials. Tying this back to the idea that commerce could be service, that money is not necessarily evil, it just has to be attached to the right things. Well, like maybe that is one way that it's a really great thing in service to the world. You're creating that useful synthesis. And then I think sort of separately, just money principles, a simple idea I think a lot of people might benefit from, I guess it's something like you don't necessarily need to have new money in order to use money. Money has a really cool property where it can grow itself. So where I think a lot of people think about it in the terms of like one in, one out, it's also possible to have it so that you have like one in and you keep one and then it's like 10 cents out, 10 cents out, 10 cents out, 10 cents out without ever losing the one. It's that apocryphal thing about people winning the lottery and then just immediately losing it because they don't understand how it can be sort of harnessed and grown. What are you worried about?
一つ聞かせろ。この先、教会の権威はどうなると思う？
Interesting that he's asking him the question. I think it's already dead. Maybe.
揺らぐと思う。
どう防ぐ？
I think it's already dead. Yeah. You've done too much
だか
damage
らこ
already.
の先も裕福でいたいなら早く手を打った方がいい。
Some friendly advice. Take your money and run. This dude is just like riding Anthony. You need to just chill and give me some space. Back up. Take one step back. Oh, how embarrassing. Look at you. What a pathetic half man you are. Selling out little kids. Yeah, what about you? You need to live sadly. You survived. Congratulations.
お前ならこの窮地も乗り越えると。
今しゃべら
Later.
ない方がいい。
Yeah, go away.
その本は何だ？
It's a book that will move the earth.
これは
You're getting real close to that candle. Please don't burn it.
この地動説って今の宇宙論に
Do they even care? At this point, do they even care?
渡せ。
Like, they care as an extension of wielding their own power, but they don't actually care. Like, if they think that Draka can help them, or this can help them make money. Oh my... What the hell? What the hell? That was dramatic. Nanda demo. Here, let me give you a hand with that book. That book was just really disarming. Came out of nowhere. It's the Liberation Front. He's still here? This is not great for your survival. You should just... Oh, you didn't survive after all. This did not play out well for you. Should have just left when you had the chance. I was actually thinking like, wow, they really let him get away with that one. Because in a lot of shows, the would-be betrayer has it flipped on him, and then as instant narrative karma for his crimes is killed. Like, Anthony would have killed him in many cases. As a big shocking twist. I'm like, oh. Or being very nuanced and reasonable, they let him go. And, you know, maybe that's the real punishment. He gets to live the rest of his days in just total humiliation and shame at the knowledge of his terrible character and what he did to Draka, someone who trusted him. But no, I just needed to wait a couple minutes. Can't say I feel super gut-wrenched. To Anthony's credit, he really knows how to run away. He's athletic. Yeah, we come back for the book and they're still here.
これは一体どんな導きなのだろう。
To the book, but with Draka.
さっきまで私を売ろうとしてたのによく言えるね。
Yeah. I mean, he did tell us. That's the one saving grace he has. He was honest. Yes. You did say that. Oh, this. I mean, I think you're forever stamped in the eternal record of existence that you were just terrible. That's your hell. That's hell for you. This is just you forever. Into infinity, you did this.
あなたたち何
For real.
者
Who? Yeah.
君
You
こそ
are
何者だ。
like an eccentric group.
なぜその本を持ってる？
I wrote it. It's mine. I found it first.
返したまえ。
Finders, keepers.
この本って一体何なの？
君の手に負えるものじゃないことは確かだ。
You don't know me, man. You don't know me like that. You don't know who I am. I know a lot about money and other stuff.
もう少し説明があってもいいんじゃない？
Your destinies are linked. We would figure that out with a little bit of communication.
我々は今日ここへおしゃべ
I
り
want
を
to
しに来た
distribute
わ
it.
けじゃない。
I need to make it spread
その本を回収しに
for
来た。
money, but also for the benefit of mankind, accidentally.
最後の忠告にするぞ。
I mean, it's a little bit much.
手
She's
荒な
a
真似は
kid.
したくない。
How much force would you really need to use? This is a crazy turning
いつか
point.
その信念がお前を導く。知性が宿れば踏み出す勇気が湧く。
My conviction is money. Here we are.
この瞬間を逃したら
The golden lottery ticket in my hand, but also so much more.
申し訳ないけど 私は今日ここに運命を変え
I
に
hope
来て
you
る
memorized it.
中身は私が覚えてる完璧じゃないけど記憶力は
Good,
いい
good,
方
yeah.
信じられる
Now you need me alive.
本の内容は覚えてるか？君が覚えていたらこの娘を処理する。
いえ、途中までしか読んでませんので。
Damn it, Frey.
燃やされた私に非がある。
Bold move.
すまない諸君。
Really
彼女を
capturing
組織長の
destiny.
もとへ連れて行く。
I wouldn't celebrate just yet. Thanks, Uncle. Thanks for everything.
じゃあねおじさん
Yeah, I mean, it would still be horribly sad. It's still your uncle.
少しは信用してもらえた
Draka's bought some time. Dangerous game, though. Weird incentives, because they're going to want you to tell them, but as soon as they know, you're disposable. And everyone knows that arrangement, so very complex Mexican standoff. Meanwhile, Bishop Antony living lavishly in his palace after hoofing it. Bishop Antony could have taught Uncle a little something about survival conviction. It's funny, because I feel like it would have been interesting either way for Draka. Either path, you know, the Bishop Antony path or this path.
最悪な出会い方だが、
Very dramatic.
動向が決まったのなら争いは不要。これからは相互理解を深め、目的に対し協力し合い。
That's all I ever wanted.
我々に必要なのは対話だ。
Now that I have no other choice.
そうまでして我々と同行したい動機は、
You have influence and power and stuff.
あの本に関われば儲けられそうだったから
Honest.
信念か。私も同じようなものを持っているから、ここに気が分かる。
I myself, a fellow conviction holder.
これから見ることになる景色は、どれも教会正統派としては苦しいものになる。
Oh, don't worry about that.
私は聖書の解釈なんて興味ない
なんと君もか。
One of us, yeah.
教会の階級制度もバカバカしいと思って
ああ、もちろん
There's a match made in heaven. Waiting for the other shoe to drop,
ない
though.
わけだ
Nope. Nope. We do believe in God.
あれ
Oh, you messed up. That was blasphemy. You went one level too deep there.
神を信じてないということか。
No God whatsoever. That's terrible.
だ
Man,
から
what's
そ
wrong
う
with
言
you?
ってるんですけど
Having trouble processing this because it's so absurd. Heretic! Burn him! And that's when the heretic liberation army became the heretic hunters. It was too heretical for the heretic liberation front. I feel like hanging out with Schmidt would be exhausting.
そうか。この運命も。
Interesting.
まず君のような意見のものとは初めて会った。
I like his
率
open-mindedness.
直に言って大変動揺してるし、怒りも覚えてる。
You wouldn't really guess it, but I like his emotional control then.
君は早急に消え失せる運命であってくれと思ってる。
That's ominous, but alright.
はい
It depends what you mean by vanish.
ってことはあなたたちは神をがっつり信じてると
信じてるも何も
We also,
神は
we just need to define what we mean.
根拠はこの世界にあるから。
This could be settled with conversation, maybe.
私はただ神の作った自然を崇拝するだけだ。
ちょっと待って
This could be a very big
自然を崇拝すること自体が
ride.
一つの解釈なんじゃ
Oh,
私はそれをただ良いと感じてるだけだからだ。論理ではなく感覚だ。解釈までいかない。
it's therefore natural, is the argument.
神は私の運命を定めているが、どこに導くかは知らない。
Hard argument to make.
何かを理解しようとする人の知性とやらを信用してない。
It's so tough because there's a lot in there, but it's so tricky. And I think what Draka is picking up on is that it does feel instinctively that there are some sort of recursive loops happening here. One of the issues is where do you draw the line at natural? If there is a grand creator, at what point is human intellect or human logisticizing stepping off what is God made? That means that even though God is the totality of everything, humans are somehow capable of being like more than God in a sense, or like outside of God. We can enter an area where God does not exist somehow. It also never has really been that satisfying to me to just take everything that is and say, well, that's God. Because, you know, it's like, sure, but nothing really has happened. You know, you're just taking a thing and adding a new name to it, but you haven't actually added anything to the meaning or interpretation of what that thing is or what it means. Why even really make a distinction for God there? Also, I think it's sort of a bold assessment, and I would disagree with it, that all things that happen, no matter what they are equally as good because they happen. Now, I think there actually is an argument for that, but it's sort of not practical and not the domain of humans. There probably is a greater plan that is so big that that like everything that happens probably is good ultimately, or it will filter somehow into good. I think it's something like in that whole system that, you know, will always sort of work itself out and is going in a good direction. Humans have their own role to play and can play it better or worse, and we know these things because they emerge through nature as a value system. It's hard to get very specific and pin them down, but we kind of know in very broad strokes what those things are. You know, we know what evil is, we know what good is when we see it, when we feel it. And no one created that. It wasn't random. It like came from the very nature that he's talking about. So it almost feels like there is sort of a value scale built into it already that predates us, at least for our purposes. Where I will go with him that I agree with is that a lot of terrible ideas can be put forth under logic or under the guise of logic. And so it's good to be skeptical. And I think people are terribly wrong about data or their interpretations of data or the reasoning structures. It's very dubious territory. It's not as black and white as a lot of people want to say it is. I think there is an inherent fallibility to man, which is always worth considering. But that doesn't mean humans can't do good things and, you know, get to some very interesting places. And at least, you know, brush up against truth and idea or action.
じゃあ私はその意見には乗れない。
Let's hear it, Draka.
だって人間は論理や知性を使って成長する。それを捨てたら社会はどうやって発展するの？
Maybe he feels like there is no evolution, actually. That would be a judgment that we cannot make.
成長しよう発展しようという考えがそもそも不自然なのだよ。
Right.
不自然に楽をしたいから人は争う。世界は混沌とする。
Whoa, that's a leap then. I mean, if you're talking about natural human instincts, I don't think you can say comfort is unnatural. That's not an invention. That's not a logical thing. That's a pretty deep instinct. No, my cat likes to sleep in the sun, you know?
バカバカしい。それじゃまるで神の奴隷だ。
思い上がった人間よりマシだ。
There's so much happening at once. I do feel like there's a lot of his reasoning that's circular. It's kind of subjective. Why bother with anything then? I mean, just looking at him, this is way too elaborate of a thing to be doing, of an occupation. To say it's just what he likes, I don't think so. There's a lot of abstraction happening here. There's reasoning and thinking and logic and deliberation. This is not like I'm hungry, I stuff my face with cake, which probably he would think is a wonderful thing because it's natural and that's your fate. Because like whatever it is, you just then say it's fate because it's what happened. He has enough logical outs where he can sort of write it in any way that is convenient for him to stay right without actually making any real interesting claims. That said, I really like the line about it wouldn't be terrible for humans to be slaves to God. Why do we take for default that the greatest thing that could be is things being for us? Thinking that we're the highest thing, maybe there is some pride and conceit there.
あなたが正しいとは全く思わない。
That's not an argument,
そ
Draka,
の
to be
まま
fair.
お返しさせていた。
Right, yeah. We can agree to disagree. Maybe we can meet in the middle. We can both learn and grow from each other, much like greats before us, such as Oxy and Badeni. Oh, he's doing the no country for old men thing. That is not how this works, Schmidt. The truth is not decided by a coin flip.
どうやらこの場は私が
This time. Speaking of subjectivism,
こんな偶然に何も決めさせない。
ま
Schmidt, interestingly, is much more calm than Draka, though. I mean, he is an adult. Draka, a little bit emotional with her arguments. She's a kid, and she does have major trust issues for good reason.
どういうこと？
一日の始まり。
Beautiful morning. We must pray to the sun. All hail the sun? Are we gonna Dark Souls it? Look, I'm all for appreciating nature, though. If you appreciate nature, that's beautiful. Go for it.
神よ
This feels really nice to me. I
こ
don't
のた
know.
めにわざわざ降りたの。
Just. That's a
この
big
ためにわ
just.
ざわざ生まれてきた
Wow.
何か。
That's okay. This feels maybe like it's one of those many roads, one path things. It'll hit different people in different ways. Oh, that's right. She hates it. Yeah, different association, completely.
隠れたくても見たくない日も。
I too do not naturally like mornings. My trauma was school. Morning means school, and school was bad. I still haven't shaken that off. I still hate waking up. I would really love to break this pattern, and it's gotten better over time, but man, it just feels like it runs so deep. And maybe I'm overinterpreting it. Maybe this is just physiological, but the way I conceptualize it is like, I just grew up hating mornings because of what it represented, and so even now, the typical path of my day is I wake up into agony. It's just very difficult to get moving and started. But then with every passing minute from there, the day gets better and better, reaching sort of a fever pitch where I'm often just ecstatic and feeling great, and I feel like my mind's on fire at night. But of course, then that's time to sleep, which I dread because that means starting over at the lower level of that cycle again. And so I don't sleep enough, and so morning's more difficult, etc., etc., etc.
しかも決まって律儀に毎日登る。誰も逃げられない。
Let's count our blessings there, I guess. Have you seen the movie Sunshine?
私にはその良さは死んでもわからない。
It's like aged up in that frame.
あの本で一体何をするつもりか。
Do whatever I feel like, as fate
今回の任
provides.
務内容を話してもいいのでは。
Mission feels like a little bit blasphemous if we're following nature.
おそらく世界を揺るがす3つの発明
Printing press, gunpowder, yeah, and
2つ
Compass.
活版印刷
Yeah, right. It's a big deal.
従来の本の複製方法は手書きの写本か
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for you guys. This is terrible. I just love typing too much.
驚くほど短時間で均一な品質の写本を量産できる。
Do you know how much money you can make?
そうだ。
Yeah. You could make a fortune here without this book, but you also have this book.
我々の目的はあの本を出版することだこれが
We
組
shall
織長直
destroy
々
the
に命を受け
orthodoxy.
た最重要とされる今回の任務だ
Who's your leader? Is it Yolenta?
今我々の世界では情報は監禁されている権威による
Funny watching this in the modern era, knowing the pitfalls of this,
共同体での相互監視
knowing this is just one side of the spectrum.
そういう開かれた場で多様な意見が集まってこそ理性は磨かれる
Yeah.
と組織長は考えてる
I think feedback is an important element of a good process, like the feedback that is inherent in natural selection. The product as a whole probably benefits and gets sharper from being put through a strainer. We're trying to make something that flies, and so we need it to be aerodynamic, and so it needs to go as fast as it can against the wind so that the wind peels off the superfluous elements of it, you know, trimming the fat, so that we create an arrow that shoots. It needs to be tested, and I think it does sort itself out, and I think this is one of the best arguments for just total allowance of all speech and all ideas. The one little, like, modern caveat on this is that there needs to be some sort of set of unifying standards being applied, at least. It can't just be that anyone creates the truth by speaking it. That rigor has to be applied, and that rigor itself has to come from something or somewhere. It seems less and less like that's guaranteed. You know, it seems like people can just make noise, and it all kind of just goes into a pot. You know, it's just part of the soup now. I guess the counter argument there is that that's probably a view limited by time. I mean, it looks like that, but it might not play out that way long term. The excess probably does get drained over a long enough time frame just because it doesn't work. Natural selection is most obvious with time.
そこで出版を請け負い情報を解放し自由を与えるのが重要というわけだ
Free the people, the whole people.
あの改革派に
まあこの前まで正統派と大きな戦争をしてた改革派にだ
Interesting. The older I get, the more I understand Reformation.
話し合いは一時中断だ
Uh-oh, who's attacking?
到着だぜ
Wow, it's already nighttime. They've been talking all day in this carriage, speaking of long-winded. I guess Schmidt is the good kind of exhausting. At least it's stimulating conversation. I think as a kid, being convinced that religion was stupid, Reformation just struck me as, you know, just different factions of stupid. Like competing for power, you know, like, no, it's mine. And maybe there's something to that. In fact, I think that's often at least a part, sometimes a large part of widespread social movements. At the same time, it's like to steelman it, Reformation would be what you needed to combat this very thing. You know, like there's a beautiful idea that gets corrupted over time, or it just gets diluted to the point where we've lost the original essence of it. And it gets to a really low point of like, wait a minute, what are we doing? How did we get here? We need to kind of reset this thing. And then somebody or a group of people comes along, and really what they're probably trying to do is return to the original thing, but it looks radical from this point that we've arrived at, which is just some warped telephone game from that source. But perhaps with some modern additions and some tinkering to update for that mistaken path we went down, and so on and so forth through time. I've been sort of musing recently that, you know, it might be due time for another Reformation. You know, like, I don't think that the rejection of all faith and the sort of subjectivism, my pleasure, my enjoyment, my material life is the highest possible thing in the universe type thinking is good. I feel like we're kind of hungry for a higher anchoring, but simultaneously I am not a fan of religion the way I grew up being exposed to it, and I don't like arguments from authority. I don't like the idea that we should respect the orthodoxy because it's the orthodoxy. Scams abound. People use good things for their own gain and power all the time. I think that in many ways religion was undone by its keepers. So how do you reconcile those two things? Well, it would be some new weird crazy modern Reformation.
久しぶり
Oh, it is
おおこれは
Yolenta, right?
わざわざお出迎え感謝しま
Yeah,
す
the loose thread.
我々異端
Is
解放
it?
戦
It
線の
is.
組
It is,
織
right? It would make sense for this dramatic reveal. Yeah. Wow. Timid, bookworm, invalid opinion, Yolenta. Look at her now. This is a crazy arc for her. It's not at all what I expected, you know? It's way grander and more dramatic, which is really cool. I wonder what Novak's up to. Is Novak alive? What if Novak was a good character now? So many things they could do here. That would be really interesting. Pretty stunning episode. I find myself thrilled to the level where I'm at. I'm actually perspiring from what was basically an episode of like a dude and a kid talking in a carriage and then like, you know, looking at the sun. But that is the beauty of Orb on the Movements of the Earth. Truly an audacious show.